Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome to KIMEcast. I'm Tony Mikla with my crew here, Russ Dunning, Evan Hauger, Aaron Crouch. 2020. Let's talk about 2020, the year that everyone wants to forget, but let's reshape that maybe a little bit at this time and think, what are the opportunities of 2020? Maybe what should an athlete consider as some of their transitions in this year, maybe some of their variances, some more positive spin to this thing as it kind of wraps up. But before we get to that, let's dive into the beer of the night here.
All right, beer tonight is from a newly opening brewery. We've got the early release. They're opening this weekend. This is called Movement Brewing Company. Actually, Aaron's stepbrother is one of the owners. This is called Angry Eagle. This is a double IPA. We sampled it this weekend. It's good. It's very tasty.
It's also another opportunity of 2020, right? Opening a business.
Right on.
Maybe not advise forward, but
yeah,
they're doing a great job.
Just shows how ballsy you are.
Especially
In
the restaurant or food business right now.
It's called guts, baby. I got to meet that owner.
Yeah. Thanks. It's really like beer.
It's certainly appropriately named as movement for our purposes.
It improves your movement after a while.
There's probably an end point to that.
Yeah, there's a peak there.
We didn't define the movement. You may just move more in some awkward way.
I know that definitely exists in golf. You know, you get like 2 drinks in and ball's moving.
Oh, I had a teammate in college. So he went off to summer ball, and summer ball is in college is not something that is that formal. But either way, he was a bullpen pitcher, and so he would chug a beer before going out to his relief appearance and just lights out.
Just
Lights
calm the nerves.
Yeah,
Let's say.
He might have had to address some things when he wasn't having a beer. So either way, it helped his performance.
Yeah. Well, that could be a good lead in here to what's the advantages of 2020 and some things you can take advantage of, and maybe preparation for your sport. But I don't know if chugging the beer would be recommended, but if it works, it worked. Way to say if it works, it works.
He's on the right track neurologically.
Yeah, that's
on the
it.
right track.
I got a great story on that later too. So the concept here, and I think thoughts is, man, this has been a tough go for so many people. So not to make light of the situation at all, but to really look at it from working with our athletes, working with our clients, like what are some opportunities? Obviously, we've seen competition is, gone away for a majority of the high school athletes, certainly most of the college athlete in most of the country. You see in the professional sports kind of trickling themselves back in throughout the summer and into the fall here, which has been great to see. But we're also seeing some problems that have emerged because of the timing of that and maybe some lack of preparation. So what should our athletes and clients be considering as maybe we don't know when their next competitive season starts? It could be in a month, it could be in 6 months. But at the end of the day, I think we all recognize that one day they're going to get the call, which is going to be very difficult to predict, that, hey, we're going to be back on the field next week. It's time to go. And we're seeing that through college football right now. There's talk of hey, let's get back out there and go. And, what can athletes be doing now to help prepare them for that situation, no matter what their level might be?
I feel like, for me, if I was in that situation, it would definitely be identifying what I maybe wasn't good at. And maybe if you don't feel like you can come up with that answer as a young athlete, your coaches are still there to have conversations with. Okay, what were some things you identified in my play that I could be better at? Was it, do I need to get more explosive? Do I need to practice the mental game a little bit more? Help steer or have someone help you steer your efforts during this time to prepare you even more for when you start. That's where I would start.
When there's kind of 2 components here, right? There's the development side where if you've got a long time off, then we could work on that type of development. But then there's the other side to this coin where a lot of these guys are in limbo and they don't necessarily know when they're going to get this call. So we've had this group of pro baseball guys in one of our facilities that have been essentially in limbo since they got sent home from spring training in March. So this is the group that wasn't playing at the major league level and wasn't on the taxi squad. This is the next group that have been, kind of being told, we might need you, we might not. So they don't really get a chance to go through that full off season. And now some of them did just get called into these kind of mini camps they're going to do. It's going to be 25 to 30 games this fall. And, some of them were probably well prepared neurologically and physiologically for that, and some of them probably weren't. So again, I think there's kind of 2 sides. It's preparing for the unknown and then kind of like dominating a longer off season. So you got to go two ways.
It's like the longest preseason of all time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know when this preseason's going to end, right? Which is, I think, most athletes are excited about preseason, but when you don't have a date that you're going to get started, it's like, man, that's a lot of work, you know. I know in training athletes, I think this is an important concept and a super basic concept of periodization and programming. But one opportunity for me that was really tremendous, I got to work with an athlete, Stephanie Brown Trafton. She was discus thrower for the U.S. I started with her back in 2006, and we worked together through 2016 through the Rio Olympics. Three-time Olympian, gold medalist in 2008, and then we went back to the Olympics in 2012, and she did very well. But when we transitioned from working with her in 2006 to 2008, we really put together a plan that was a full year programming session of looking at basically the year in quarters or in mesocycles for that matter, and saying, what are we going to focus on? So having an off season, having a preseason, having an in season, and having a postseason. And I think a lot of our success, and she would tell you this as well, is as we finished up the year of 2006, 2007, prepared for the Olympic year of 2008, we started training for that year in late September, early October to prepare for the August Olympics, right? And in doing so, during that off season and preseason, certainly the off season through the winter, was a tremendous amount of strength conditioning and foundational building work. And then going in, that really prepared to go into preseason, where we did more Olympic lifting, more power-based work, and move towards more explosive movements, so that in season we could really maintain the level of intensity that we were working at, as opposed to dropping that down. Because she was in such good condition, we could maintain that through her season, which allowed her to perform at the highest level in her sport, which was tremendous. And I think that she looks back at that time and says, why were we able to be successful and do that so well? And one of the biggest factors was, we started in September and we did all this off-season work. And I think that's what's put out in front of us right now. I think that for high school baseball, I think we could probably say that you're probably not going to have a great fall ball season, right? It's not likely that we're going to be seeing competitive games in the fall. People are going to sneak in some showcases and stuff, which I think might be the most dangerous thing to do in your history of your career at this point, being that you've had really probably no work most of the summer. And then, so you can kind of think that the probably first time you're going to play is probably going to be maybe late January, February at best. So you're really like in the off season a little bit earlier than usually would be, because usually be in fall ball. So you can start off season work now, really build that foundation is what I would suggest. And then as you get into late December, January, you're starting to work more towards your preseason work, assuming that things change and we kind of start to anticipate playing. But I think that'd be the next chance you have to prepare for.
You made a great point, and part of that point is really looking at where you are at in the cycle. And I think you have to first ask yourself, what type of athlete are you? Do you involve yourself in more fitness and recreation? Are you more of a ballistic activities? Stephanie at one point in her life was the most ballistic woman on the whole earth with that discus throw. And then we see a lot of injuries with football. It takes a lot more conditioning to handle a 7-second sprint, a 45-second rest, do it again for 3.5 hours straight. So what type of conditioning and ballistic nature do you need for your sport? Because to be honest, no athlete in the world can stay in the best shape of their life continually. Doesn't exist. You can't do it. The game of football, you got to last till playoffs and then the season begins. The game of ballistic one movement Olympics, it's a peak at a singular moment. So really it comes down that there's probably more questions, when it comes to what do we do with this here with 2020. And, I like the idea of trying to upgrade your sword, developing in something that you're not that good at, finding a hole in your athletic ability and filling that hole rather than constantly obsessing over the sport. Now that works really well if you don't have to be ready by next week. But you got to flip that switch. If you might be called to action in a week or 2 or 3, you kind of have to flip it and not dive too much down the strength and power game, but stay in reasonable condition so that you can actually start. So I think you really got to zoom out first and what do you need to be good at to do what you love?
Yeah, what's your time frame so you can work backwards from that? So to the baseball point, they're not going to start playing games until March at the earliest. And not to jinx anything, but that's not even really guaranteed right now, right?
Sure, yeah.
So there's this extended period of time in all sports that they have that they've never had before and will probably never have again. So it is a super unique opportunity.
I know. That's kind of it's a whole other topic to talk about youth sports and kind of where they've headed and gone over the last 10 years. I know every single one of us that competed in sports growing up, it was one sport after the next. I look forward to playing 5 different sports in a year. And now to play 2 is a challenge because it's asked of every athlete to be in it for 10 or 11 or 12 months out of the year continuously. You really don't get those key opportunities, those like phases of the year to develop your body or to take a break. So I wouldn't take a break from now until March, but what we're trying to say is like use it as a blessing to identify your limitations or identify the things you wanted to get better at that you've only been given maybe December as a baseball player to truly work on and focus on it for a solid 3-4 months. And I mean, you're going to be ready regardless of what date they give you if you commit to something like that.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting as as healthcare providers and sports medicine, I think sometimes we get blamed a lot for like going out and saying, oh, you got to have an off season and shut it down, and like you need to shut it down for 2 months out of the year, and that's a common recommendation, and I think that's a little debatable. Maybe to what degree that is. I think we can talk about that as well. But none of us up here would say that, hey, let's shut it down and just sit on the couch for 2 months ever, But maybe if you're throwing hard and competitively for 12 months out of the year in baseball, or if you're playing competitive games in basketball or in football 12 months out of the year, that's obviously not your best choice. So we need some version of still work on your skills and maybe tone down your intensity, work on different aspects of your game, and then bring it back. We'd recommend that any time. And I think that this is a time where it's like forced upon the athlete now. And I think probably way too much. Now you've been 6 months out now from doing things. We're at this point of we have this huge gap of performance. This probably weren't training a lot, probably couldn't train a lot. No gyms, no teams to work with, no coaching available immediately. So certainly for the first 2 or 3 months, and then maybe now getting back into it. So I think the messaging I would say, and something we see, and it's been well published in the media, is regarding like our baseball guys again with the UCL injuries. Right, you get the guys and they tear their UCL, and they have surgery, and sometimes it's a 12-month, 14, 16-month rehab to get back out on the mound, especially at the big league level. And what we see is often statistically those guys come back throwing harder.
Yeah.
And here's you with 12 months off, theoretically from their sport competition, and they're coming back a better athlete. And I think that's a comparable analogy to what we're seeing now during this COVID time is, can people take advantage of this time? And I would say the reason why UCL guys come back and throw harder is probably not because of the graft itself. That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I don't think any doctor would even say that. But what happens is it's the first time in the athlete's career that they truly took a year to repair their body. Similar to the way I was talking about Stephanie, we took a year to repair her body to do a certain thing. And I think when you do that, if you master your skill set and you're coming up and through high school and into college, and you've got some skills, maybe you can't master that skill set. This is an opportunity right now, I think, to just really, really work on your body and get it in a position to be successful. And that's what we break down with these elbow guys, right? Is all their shoulder work, all the thoracic work, getting kinetic drive to the hips and to the legs so they can transfer force properly. And then they come back and they're just as shocked as anybody. They're like, damn, this feels good.
But it's back to the basics, things that when they're competing and playing, they don't think about, the coaches don't think about. There isn't time put into that. So it's like that foundational kind of rebuild that, again, this long period of time we have now could very much be used for.
I saw that a lot when I worked a lot with Uriah Faber. And I like talking about him because he's such an awesomely genuine guy. But during our stretch, while I was working with him for about like 10 years in between the WC and UFC, he had a lot of wins and losses. Favorably for him, more wins than losses. But I noticed a little trend that every time he got injured and he had a rehab stint, and he and I got to work together, we paired therapy and rehab combined with some good strength and conditioning, just some solid foundational work. And he always came back with a stronger camp and a win. And it was really kind of fun to see that he really tied a lot of wins, after a rehab stint. And so maybe we look at 2020, we call it a rehab year.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a great way to look at it.
Knowing your resources around you, I think too, like finally diving deep in like who can be in your network as an individual that's in your general vicinity. Like, do you have, obviously you're going to have your sports coaches and you could rely on them on certain tweaks and things to your game. Do you have a reputable strength conditioning coach, performance coach that can help develop the right program for you? Do you have a good rehab specialist that understands what you want to be able to do and get back to being a better self, so to speak? You could take it as far as even a sports psychologist or a mental coach, or a dietitian, so to speak, if you need to go down that route for nutrition education. But understand that you can leverage this time to find out different resources for yourself and really gain some knowledge to improve.
I mean, that's Dan John to a T. I remember he said like a decade ago, have your team. Know who your network is. You want to succeed in life from a performance standpoint, have a team behind you.
And to that point in 2020, it doesn't have to just be in your general area. So many people, there's online versions of coaching, there's online training, there's online assessments. I think a lot of this can be done remotely. So particularly if you're in an area where you're not allowed to go into gyms, or you don't have the resources that you'd want, or the eliteness of the resources that you would want, there's online versions of that all available now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
Kind of
like
no excuse really.
well, like testing your athleticism, like what kind of technology do you need? Stopwatch, some cones, measuring tape, maybe some weights, or you think more like body weight strength. I mean, it really isn't like insane technology to really test your athleticism.
Well, and I think all of us have been tested as clinicians and coaches here the last number of months with the virtual sessions. We've probably done a fair number of those, each of us, right? And so people in their house, maybe they don't have weights, maybe they've got some textbooks and a backpack. And so you figure out a way to load them and the way to get the adaptation you need.
Home Depot's open, get a bucket in
Home
concrete.
Depot, exactly. Actually, the bucket in
£50 for
concrete.
you.
So the bucket in concrete. We had a baseball player this year, and again, no excuses. In Sacramento, pro baseball guy. He wanted to squat. He had a barbell. He didn't have any way to rack the barbell, so he got 2 of those orange Home Depot buckets, filled them with concrete, put 2x4s in there, and stacked them just offset enough where he could stack a barbell in there and had a nice squat rack for himself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very unstable. Not recommended.
Yeah.
But again, no excuses.
We have seen a few of those.
Perseverance.
Yes.
That's key.
Yeah.
Perseverance.
So, I mean, to me, it sounds like the opportunity here, obviously, is really to get to work, to not really hang back and let's wait and, count your, just count your blessings that you can get home and show and play video games. So let's turn the table and say, like, what can I do to really improve myself and get after it? And, we're here to help with this too. I mean, you need some help here of evaluating what to work on. I mean, we do this all the time virtually, so I'd be happy to do so. But that's not the point. The point is, can let's get out there and get working and build these foundational elements. Get your body right, I think is really the take home. And if you can get that right, and then go put it to work when called upon, right? Because frankly, you just don't know when that call is coming. So get the base built up. Build back some soreness in your body and your tissues. Kind of build the muscles up. Get yourself ready to go. And then when you get that call, you'll be ready to transition to more of your speed and power element. You'll have the foundation there built for you. So it's time to go. So get up and get rocking.
I think it should be said though, the elephant in the room when it comes to this kind of stuff is it's just not as fun as playing competitive sports. Sure. And there are those laziness outlets, and there's those video game outlets, and there's a gazillion excuses. And I think that the tough part that most people face is, well, I don't want to do that, or they just can't find it in them to kind of self-motivate. Yeah. Unfortunately,
this would be like a tangent, but not really. But I think of it as it's a mindset issue, right? Beth, my wife, says it all the time, a mindset of abundance or a mindset of opportunity. And she's 100% right. And it's how do you pivot from your current situation? When we were dealing as a business with the COVID struggles, like everyone else was in the world and the country, in my brain, I was thinking to myself, 3 months from now, we're going to be the ones at the starting line on the blocks, ready to go when the gun goes off, and everyone's going to be licking their wounds in the locker room if they don't prepare. So you can do the exact same thing as an individual for any opportunity, for any scenario. We're talking about sports and rehab and everything else, but I think the biggest challenge most people face is changing their mindset to seeing through negativity and seizing opportunity.
And that's exactly it in sports too. If you guys have all worked with elite athletes, and when you get to a certain level, everybody is physically talented. It's not necessarily the physical gift that separates them. It's exactly that. It's the mindset. It's the mental side of things. It's understanding that they can get an edge by how they think. You guys ever heard Russell Wilson talk? That guy, he just thinks like a champion and he speaks like a champion. And you can hear it when it comes out.
He's not right.
Yes. Coming from a person from Seattle, that is very little value.
Very, very little value.
We could go many other directions with this. I got many examples.
It's a very biased opinion. Though Russ is an amazing athlete, I'll give it to you.
But back to unbiased opinions. You look in professional baseball. Another example. We had an all-star, Major League Baseball all-star that came in the facility this offseason. We've got a big number of guys that are low levels in the major leagues or minor leagues. And the one thing that sets him apart from all the rest is how he thinks about things. And you listen to him talk, you listen to them talk, it's 2 very different versions of things. And you also, when he talks, they listen because he's saying things that their mind hasn't gone to yet. Yeah. I'm going to say Russell Wilson one more time in a really good book. It's a really good book called It Takes What It Takes. It's by Trevor Moab, who used to work at Exos. He's a mental performance coach. He's worked with Russell and many other NFL teams and athletes in college football and all these other sports.
He's at Alabama, Michigan, Trevor's
Alabama,
done a good job.
yeah, he's followed Nick Saban everywhere.
Yep.
And he talks about neutral thinking and what you can control, and it's really powerful stuff. It's super, super simple, but it's really powerful stuff.
Yeah. I think that's cool. We see that a lot. It's fun when you get the chance to work in a kind of a locker room training environment where you have either teams, or I've always been in associations where we have maybe an all-star, and then you have other individuals that are trained around them from other teams. So it's kind of a neutral environment, so it makes it kind of fun. But remember back in the day when I'm getting old now, but Kurt Schilling is one of the best pitchers in the league. Back in the day, obviously multi-time all-star, was amazing. It was so cool to watch the players around Kurt when he was in and training or working out. He'd come in and do his training session, and just afterwards sit down and just like a group just come around and just hang out and listen to him talk. And it was fun to listen to him talk because his stories were so direct, so clear. This is what we do and this is what it takes. And he's really a great mentor for a lot of young athletes that way. But you're right about the psychology and the mentality that they have to win. So make those adjustments in your mindset. I think there's a lot of negativity going on out there, and there's a lot of maybe a lack of understanding of what the future might look like. But remember that all you can control is what you can control, is what I would say, and take the opportunity to really, you can turn around, focus on yourself, get yourself ready. So as Aaron said, when that opportunity strikes, that you're ready to step up to the plate and get going.
What the fuck are we doing? During this dead period right now in the world, we're still talking about electrodes, STEM, and ultrasound as a primary gold standard treatment option. Can we just leave it dead as well with everything else that's going on? Honestly,
I'm with you. I'm obviously all in. It's without our facilities, we don't really have we actually don't have an ultrasound unit that does ultrasound treatment, so to speak.
Yeah, right.
We have a diagnostic ultrasound unit, so we can look at tissue and look in the body and help it to evaluate things. But
let's understand what you're trying to do in those moments with those two tools, right? You're trying to eliminate pain. You're trying to facilitate the healing process. You can do that with your hands in very strategic ways.
Yep.
You can speak to the nervous system with other tools outside of passive stuff like an ultrasound or electrode, which has a 50-50 success rate in this research, actually.
And so just to play devil's advocate again, if pain is the limiting factor, maybe there could be a use for it. But if people are coming back saying that was the primary thing as far as treatment that they got, we're totally missing the boat. If it's a tiny piece of the puzzle, it's not going to hurt them. But
we carry a compact unit.
Yeah,
if someone's super hot with their pain and stuff, and you need to at least calm them down because that's the goal of the session.
Talk to them and walk away.
Maybe.
The sad part is, say there is a shred of capability of it actually helping. What do you say then? How about you come back this evening? We'll do the same thing. Tomorrow morning when it hurts, I'll be here for you, and we can do it again after lunch. What kind of schedule do you put together if it actually does work?
Yeah, right. And the time you have to spend, right? It's 10 minutes with 10 minutes with the 10s, about 8 to 12 minutes, 8 to 15 minutes, whatever you want to call it with the billing code for ultrasound. You could have done so much in that moment to influence that person with your hands and your words, right? So if you're able in your situation, if you're able in your environment to spend a little extra time with you yourself with the client, I would highly suggest that be your option rather than maybe something that's kind of fizzling a bit.
Yeah, well, I think fizzling for a good reason, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of really evidence to support it either way. And we can have this debate about many topics that we work with, right? I mean, whether it be ultrasound, electrical stim, ice, there's many debatable issues here that we could describe, and most of which, for that reason, we're not really using, right? But for the right person, the right one thing might work, but we've just not found ultrasound to be a tool that really moves the needle with any kind of regularity or any kind of reliability. There's much better tools in the toolbox that we found that one lasts much longer than the duration that it's delivered. So if it takes 5 minutes or 8 minutes or 10 minutes to apply the ultrasound throughout the session, maybe the person gets a bit of relief if they get anything. And for how long does that last? Not more than a day, most likely. So we could use other strategies that might get us, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days of relief, and ultimately true change in the person's symptoms. Hopefully through movement training is what we always are shooting for. So I could see the argument that you want to use ultrasound to use it to open up the window opportunity to move more, but that's not really how we see it used clinically. And I think if that's your mindset, there's other and better tools besides ultrasound to open up that window for you.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to talk like, cellular movement or edema or getting some swelling out, and that might be driving the pain pattern, the choices are endless of what you could do between, whether it's elevation or some gentle compression or doing some effleurage or really working on some parasympathetic tone. There is so much to do inside of any hour with that patient. And to spend 10, 15 minutes on something that might have a chance, like we already have too much to do. Like, why would you go there? And my only logical thought on that is you don't know what else to do.
Right.
That might be a bit bold, but just throw it out there.
Well, it's a valid thought, right? Because it's not on my list. Because I have so many other options that just doesn't make the list ever. It hasn't made the list in a decade. So I think a strong consideration there about what are you doing and why are you doing it. As always, what are we trying to accomplish with a tool of that nature? All right, thanks for listening to KIMEcast. We'll catch you next time. This was KIMEcast, and we are the KIME Human Performance Institute. Thank you very much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. Please hop on our social media. It's at KIMEHPI and engage with us there. If you'd like us to feature a topic or answer any questions live on the show, post your comments there. You can also check us out on our website at KIMEperformance.com, and there you can see links to content that we've posted throughout our podcast for more information.